So I want you to picture a very specific scene. It's August 2nd, 2015.
Okay.
We're in Palo Alto, California, at a place called Baumé. And, for context, this isn't just some nice dinner spot.
No, not at all. This is a 2-Michelin-star restaurant, incredibly avant-garde, very exclusive. It's the kind of place where, the menu is a secret until you'd sit down.
Exactly. But on this particular night, even if you had all the money in the world, you couldn't get a table.
That's right. The entire restaurant had been bought out for a private event. And if you happen to be walking by and, caught a glimpse through the window, you would have seen a gathering that represented just a staggering percentage of the global economy, all at one table.
Right. I mean, it's essentially the Mount Rushmore of Silicon Valley, right? You've got Mark Zuckerberg, founder of Facebook, there with his wife, Priscilla Chan. You have Elon Musk, who at this point is, deep into Tesla and SpaceX. Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn. Peter Thiel, the billionaire investor. It is just a room heavy with power.
It's the definition of a power dinner. But then there's one guest at the table who, he doesn't fit the profile.
Right.
He's not a tech founder. He isn't a coder. He isn't a venture capitalist. And yet, looking back from where we are today, his presence casts this very long, very dark shadow over the entire evening.
We are talking about Jeffrey Epstein.
Exactly.
And that right there, that's the mission of this deep dive. We aren't just recounting a dinner party. We are looking at a stack of specific documents, leaked emails, DOJ filings, internal communications that completely upend the official story we were told about this night.
Because for years, the narrative has been that Epstein was, a pariah? Or at best, someone these tech titans just sort of bumped into by accident.
A nuisance, yeah. The story was that he was an uninvited nuisance. But the sources we have today, they suggest something much more uncomfortable.
They suggest that these masters of the universe, the people literally building our future, were surprisingly eager for the approval of a con man.
And the core insight we're going to explore, it isn't about some grand conspiracy. It's actually more about the sociology of the elite.
Right.
The source material uses a phrase that really stuck with me. Rich dullards. It argues that this dinner just reveals the banal, slightly pathetic reality of how the ultra-wealthy interact when they think no one's listening.
It challenges that whole idea that these private rooms are filled with evil geniuses plotting world domination.
Yeah.
Instead, the documents paint a picture of men who are, bored, maybe a little naive, and just so easily charmed by anyone who can project an illusion of brilliance.
Okay, so let's set the stage properly. We know the venue. We know the heavy hitters.
Yeah.
But who organized this? Because you don't just get Musk, Zuckerberg, and Thiel in a room without a reason.
The dinner was organized by Reid Hoffman, and, ostensibly the purpose was to honor a specific guest. A guy named Ed Boyden.
Ed Boyden.
It's a brilliant neuroscientist from MIT. So on paper, this was an intellectual salon, a meeting of the minds to discuss the future of science and humanity.
Which makes the guest list even more interesting. You mentioned the tech giants, but you also had people like Joichi Ito, who was the head of the MIT Media Lab at the time.
Right.
So it's a mix of hard science and massive capital.
Right.
How does Jeffrey Epstein, a disgraced financier, get a seat at that table?
That is the first crack in the facade. Epstein was not on the original guest list. The documents show he was in town for a completely different event, found himself at loose ends, and just emailed Hoffman.
He just emailed him.
He effectively said, "Hey, I'm around," and Hoffman secured him an 11th-hour invite.
So he essentially crashed the most exclusive dinner party in the Valley.
In a manner of speaking, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He inserted himself. And this brings us right to the central conflict of our story. Because when news of this dinner finally leaked years later, around 2019, the companies involved went into immediate damage control.
Oh, of course.
Specifically, Mark Zuckerberg's team. They issued a very firm, very specific denial about his interaction with Epstein.
I actually have that statement right here, and I want to read it because the wording is so crucial. The spokesperson said, Mark met Epstein in passing one time at a dinner honoring scientists. Mark did not communicate with Epstein again following the dinner.
In passing. Did not communicate again. It paints a very clear picture, right? A polite nod, maybe a handshake, and then he moves on to talk to the real scientists. It suggests Zuckerberg was totally indifferent to him.
But this is where the paper trail becomes a real problem for that narrative. We have emails from August 5th, 2015.
Just 3 days after the dinner.
3 days later. And they tell a story that is, almost the exact opposite of meeting in passing.
Right. We have an email from Leslie Groff, Epstein's longtime executive assistant, and she writes to Andrea Bessman, who is Zuckerberg's chief of staff. And the email, it explicitly says, at the party, Mark requested Jeffrey send his contact details to him.
Okay, let's just pause on that. Mark requested. That implies Zuckerberg was the one initiating contact. It wasn't Epstein just, shoving a business card into his pocket as he walked away.
Precisely. According to the email, the interest was active on Zuckerberg's part. And look at the response from Zuckerberg's team. His chief of staff didn't say, "Who is this?" or "We're not interested."
What did she say?
She replied, "Noted," with thanks, and then forwarded that entire thread directly to Mark Zuckerberg's personal inbox.
Okay, now to play devil's advocate for a second. Could this just be Epstein's assistant, inflating the truth, making her boss look better? Oh, Mark totally asked for his number.
You could argue that maybe, if we didn't have corroboration from the other attendees. On the same day, Epstein sent an internal note to his own staff saying, "Mark asked me to give him my contacts." But the smoking gun, really, in my opinion, is an email from Reid Hoffman himself.
The organizer. What did he say?
3 days after the dinner, Hoffman sends a group email connecting Jeffrey and Zuck directly. And his sign-off is the key phrase, he writes, "So that convo can continue."
So that convo can continue. That effectively kills the met in passing defense, doesn't it? You don't continue a conversation that never happened.
Exactly. It implies there was a substantive discussion that both parties, or at least Hoffman thought both parties, wanted to pursue. And this forces us to pivot to the content of that conversation.
Right.
Because if I told you the founder of Facebook and a mysterious international financier were deep in conversation at a secret dinner, you'd probably imagine something pretty high stakes.
Oh, for sure. The movies tell us they're plotting to overthrow a currency or, picking the next president. Some Spectre-level conspiracy.
The back room of evil geniuses. But the source material we have, including accounts of what was actually said, it just shatters that myth. Turns out the conversation wasn't Machiavellian brilliance. It was. Well, the source describes it as goofy.
Goofy. That is not a word I associate with billionaires.
It was described as banal, surprisingly shallow. Specifically, they were debating how to solve global poverty.
Okay, that's a heavy topic. That doesn't sound goofy.
The topic is heavy. The solutions proposed were not. Mark Zuckerberg had this specific theory he was pitching to the table. His big idea was that poverty could be eradicated primarily through, get this, connectivity.
Connectivity.
Yeah. Essentially, his argument was that if you just give everyone the internet, poverty naturally disappears.
Wow. That sounds convenient. The solution to the world's problems just happens to be the product I sell.
It is the ultimate example of when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. But what's fascinating is the evidence he used to back this up. The source notes that Zuckerberg wasn't citing new research or, data from the field.
So what was he citing?
He was citing a specific article from The Economist.
An article from when?
From 2007. And remember, this dinner is in 2015. He's citing an 8-year-old anecdote about fishermen in India using mobile phones to check market prices to increase their profits.
That's a classic business school case study. That's something you'd read in an undergraduate seminar.
Exactly. So one of the most powerful men in the world is basing his strategy for global economic uplift on a magazine article he probably read once, nearly a decade ago.
The source uses a brutal analogy for this, right?
Oh, it's brutal. It says, "It feels like Zuckerberg forms his worldview much like your uncle killing time in a doctor's office." He read an article once years ago and decided, that's it. That's the answer. It just reveals a startling lack of depth.
It suggests a real lack of curiosity about anything outside their immediate bubble. Like they just assume their own intuition is better than actual expertise.
And this is a known phenomenon. Sociologists call it epistemic trespassing. It's where experts in one field like coding or scaling a social network assume they are automatically experts in these complex, unrelated fields like sociology or macroeconomics.
I built a website with 1 billion users, so surely I can fix poverty.
You got it. And here is the twist that makes this dinner so surreal. Jeffrey Epstein, the high school teacher turned financier turned predator, is the one who calls him out on it.
No way.
He does. In a follow-up email, part of that continuing convo, Epstein critiques Zuckerberg's connectivity theory. He calls it reductionism. He actually lectures the CEO of Facebook, writing that you can't just have connectivity. A real society needs trust, taxes, and transactions, and social contracts.
I have to stop you there, because the irony is, it's just overwhelming. You have a man who violated the social contract in the most horrific ways possible, lecturing on the importance of social contracts.
It's deeply cynical, isn't it? Epstein is playing the role of the sophisticated philosopher to Zuckerberg's tech bro. He's mirroring their intellectual language to sound profound. He knows these guys are insecure about being seen as just coders, so he speaks to them in this high-minded academic tone.
But Epstein wasn't just critiquing, he had his own pitch, didn't he? He wanted to offer a solution.
Oh, absolutely. And if you thought Zuckerberg's idea was simplistic, wait until you hear this. Epstein suggested that Zuckerberg should turn Facebook into a new financial system based on trading favors.
Lady favors, like, I'll help you move if you drive me to the airport.
Basically, his logic, and this is wild, was Facebook already has a friends concept, so you should build an economy where people swap favors because, and I'm quoting his email, trading favors would be very complex to stop.
That sounds like a theory a teenager comes up with in a dorm room at 3 a.m.
Huh?
Dude, what if we just traded favors?
It absolutely does. It's nonsensical as a global economic policy. But here's the problem. The people in the room didn't laugh him out of the building. They didn't say, Jeffrey, that's absurd.
In fact, it seems like they were impressed.
They were. Reid Hoffman later emailed Epstein to report that his wife, Michelle Yee, found Epstein to be, and I quote, the most conversational of the high intellects at the dinner.
The most conversational of the high intellects. That phrase is doing a lot of heavy lifting. It suggests that compared to the socially awkward tech founders, Epstein just seemed like a worldly genius.
It really highlights the central danger here. Epstein was a con man. His skill wasn't finance, it was reading people. He knew that these tech founders, despite their billions, often feel insecure about their lack of, traditional sophistication. They want to be seen as philosopher kings.
And Epstein gave them that performance.
Yeah.
He validated their self-image, he played to their vanity, and made them feel smart even while pitching absolute nonsense.
Exactly. But the documents, they show us the other side of the coin. And this is where the story gets much darker.
Yeah.
Because while he was charming them to their faces privately, he held them in absolute contempt.
This is the true colors section of the deep dive. The emails between Epstein and his own circle about these tech titans are just vile.
They are. We found emails from 2012, so 3 years before this dinner, where Epstein is discussing Zuckerberg with a fixer. He's incredibly transactional. He asks if meeting Zuckerberg is even worth the time.
Wow.
There's no respect there. He's just hunting for a target, checking if the juice is worth the squeeze.
And it gets much more personal than just business snobbery. The racism in these emails is shocking, and it's directed right at the people he was dining with.
It is disturbing, but you have to discuss it to understand the man behind the mask. In emails to his associates, Epstein makes explicit, racist comments about Zuckerberg's wife, Priscilla Chan. He uses racial slurs. He even calls Zuckerberg gay as a derogatory insult simply because he married an Asian woman.
It's this bizarre 1950s-level bigotry mixed with modern predation.
He goes on to make these sweeping pseudo-evolutionary generalizations about why American men marry Asian women versus what Russian men prefer. It's just deeply misogynistic and racist. But notice the duality, right? At the dinner, he's talking about trust and social contracts. In private, he's spewing hate speech.
And the smartest men in the world, the men building the algorithms that supposedly understand us better than we understand ourselves, they couldn't tell the difference.
And that's the perils of oligarchy the source warns us about. We assume that because someone is a billionaire, they must be a good judge of character. We assume they have a radar for BS.
Right.
But this dinner proves the opposite. Their arrogance makes them blind. They are so used to being the smartest person in the room that they never suspect they're being played.
So what happened after the dinner? Did Zuckerberg take the bait? Did that convo continue to the point where he ended up at the ranch or on the island?
This is maybe the one place where Zuckerberg comes out looking relatively okay, perhaps by sheer luck. Based on the documents available, the thread just seems to have died on his end. Epstein certainly tried to keep it alive. He invited Zuckerberg to his ranch in New Mexico. He invited him to meetings at the UN General Assembly, promising fun dinners with world leaders.
Fun dinners with world leaders. The standard Epstein pitch. Come meet the other important people.
Right. It's pure networking bait. But Epstein later complained to Reid Hoffman that he had reached out to Zuck but had not heard back. So the source material notes that while Zuckerberg's staff forwarded those initial emails, there are no direct replies from Zuckerberg himself in the public record.
Maybe he just got bored. Or maybe his team stepped in.
Or maybe Zuckerberg just has a very short attention span for people who can't immediately do something for him. Who knows? But Epstein didn't give up. 3 years later, in 2018, long after everyone should have known better, he was still trying.
2018, that's really late in the game. What was he doing?
He emailed Kathy Remler, a former White House counsel, trying to get a back channel to Zuckerberg or Sheryl Sandberg. He claimed that he and the Facebook leadership see eye to eye and could do great things together. He was relentless.
A predator doesn't stop hunting.
It shows how desperate he was to re-infiltrate that circle. He knew that access to someone like Zuckerberg was a form of currency in itself.
So, stepping back, we have a story about a dinner that didn't result in a crime, per se. Zuckerberg didn't go to the island, no illegal deals were made, as far as we know. So why does this matter? Why are we digging into this one dinner from 2015?
It matters because it punctures the aura of invincibility around these figures. We've created a class of oligarchs who literally shape our reality. They control the algorithms that determine what news we see, how we communicate, how our economy functions.
And I think, generally, the public trusts that they know what they're doing. We sort of assume they're operating on a higher plane of understanding.
Correct. We assume that if you can build a rocket or a social network, you must understand the world. But this story reveals that behind the curtain, it's just a bunch of guys bluffing their way through conversations about topics they don't understand, citing magazine articles from a decade ago, and getting charmed by charlatans who tell them they're smart.
It's the emperor has no clothes moment. It makes them look remarkably human, and not in a good way.
And there's a political dimension to this, too, that the source brings up. It points out that many of the people in that room, Musk, Thiel, Hoffman, have become incredibly active political donors and influencers since that dinner. Many have moved sharply to the right or are advocating for pretty radical changes to society.
So if they are this easily manipulated by an Epstein, who else is whispering in their ear?
Exactly. That is the frightening implication. If your worldview is this shallow, if it's based on trading favors, and you can be swayed by a con man using big words, then you are vulnerable. The danger isn't that they are evil masterminds plotting our destruction.
The danger is that they're naive.
Naive, overconfident, and incredibly powerful. That is a volatile mix. The source puts it well. The danger isn't a conspiracy, it's the oblivious rich guy syndrome. They open the door to the wolf because the wolf is wearing a nice suit and compliments their tie. And when you hold the keys to the kingdom, opening that door has consequences for all of us.
Well, that is a terrifying thought to hold on to. We started with a secret dinner, expecting a tale of dark conspiracy, and we've ended with a realization that the people running the world might just be rich dullards after all.
It's a reminder to always question that genius label. Wealth is not wisdom. Success in one field doesn't equal moral or intellectual clarity. And sometimes the most exclusive room in the world is just a room full of people who don't really know what they're talking about.
I want to leave everyone with the final question the source poses, because I think it's the one we all need to sit with.
If the people shaping our politics, our culture, and our economy are this easily impressed by shallow ideas and obvious charlatans, are these really the people we want in charge?
Something to think about next time you log on. Thanks for listening to this deep dive.
Thank you. Keep questioning.